Director's support. Carolyn, will you please call the roll?
Director Kennett.
Here.
Director Matthews.
Here.
Director Chapman.
Here.
Director Sutherland.
Here.
Director Dominguez.
Here.
Director Gill.
Here.
Have a quorum?
We do.
Thank you. At this time, any members of the public will have the opportunity to address the board on any item not on the agenda. Speakers will be limited to 3 minutes, and I have one speaker card for Isa
Angeloni.
Angeloni. Well, welcome.
Does this get recorded? I'm just curious. I've never been to one of these. Are
Oh,
they recorded?
it is, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes. And
Nice.
your subject is AES.
Yes, AES is the corporation that's trying to build a battery storage facility in Coyote Valley. And I met with them yesterday, and I was not impressed. And I was really concerned because I'm very familiar. And by the way, East Angeloni, thank you for the time. I just jumped right into it. Trying to talk fast in my 3 minutes. I can talk a lot. So I met with them, met with the what do you call it? Consultants that probably get a bonus if they get it through. And they said that they're going to go through the opt-in to Assembly Bill 205, which means we don't get a say. And, the California Energy Commission, pretty much they get through that process and the community, nobody gets a say. That alone gets me concerned, especially with all the work going in to make that an open space. The other concern, our water table is very high in that area. And these batteries is going to be lithium ion, which is the same type of battery as Moss Landing. Okay. They're pulling on the angle of, oh, but we have better technology to sense if there's a fire and that it won't go wild and stuff. Bottom line is they have a chart saying it's getting better every year. Well, if it's getting better every year, why don't we wait 10 or 20 years and see how good it is? There's no reason to rush this. I'm really not happy with that whole process. I talked to Senator Cortese. He seemed very concerned about this, didn't really understand it. And I kind of mentioned in a nice way, Assembly Bill 205, which he voted for. But I don't think it was intended for that. So he asked for a short paragraph, some facts to be sent to his staff that I'm going to be doing. I'd love to work with someone that more technical, has their concerns, so I can put something nice together for the senator tomorrow. So I think that's it. And I think I'm under 3. Any questions, or do you guys ask questions? You don't? Okay. Thank you for your time. Can I give my contact information to anyone?
I can take.
Okay. So I just hope someone can get a hold of me tonight or tomorrow early morning.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, this card, it says I'm the president of Safe for San Jose. Forgot to mention I'm a leader in the community because I'm the president of Safe for San Jose, but I'm not representing Safe for San Jose. But I have a strong following, if you know what I mean. There you go. Thank you for the time.
Thank you for coming. Thank you. And with that, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of January 8th, 2026. Thank you. Second. Are there any members of the public who wish to comment? Seeing none. Clerk, could you please call roll?
Director Kennett.
Yes.
Director Matthews.
Yes.
Director Chapman.
Yes.
Director Sutherland.
Yes.
Director Dominguez.
Yes.
Director Gill.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I forgot to ask if the board had any questions. Okay. And then, I'd like to know if there are any changes to the consent calendar. Being none. I'm wondering if there are any members of the public who would like to speak on the item on the consent calendar, which is to receive the report on contracts approved by the general manager up to $50,000 for the month of December 2025. No board comments? Thank you. Then I will entertain a motion to adopt the consent calendar.
A motion.
Thank you,
Second.
thank you. Carolyn?
Director Kennett,
Yes.
Director Matthews,
Yes.
Director Chapman,
Yes.
Director Sutherland,
Yes.
Director Dominguez.
Yes.
Director Gill.
Yes.
That, motion is unanimously approved. Thank you. And now we are on to new business. Members of the public will have the opportunity to comment on any matter on the agenda. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes and the item is to appoint a director to fill the District 5 seat on the Board of Directors of the Open Space Authority for the remainder of the current term. And Carolyn, I believe you have a presentation.
Yes. I will take it from my clerk seat, just so I don't have to go back and forth. Thank you, directors. Tonight, we are, the staff, staff recommend that the board follow the described process in your board report and adopt resolution 2603, appointing a director to the District 5 seat to fill the remainder of the current term ending December 4th, 2026. And then should the board decide to appoint a person to that vacant seat, the oath of office will be administered tonight, pending the candidate is present. For some background information, on December 4th of 2025, the authority received a resignation letter from Director Vicki Alexander, stating that effective December 12th, 2025, I'm sorry, the wrong years on that. Effective December 12th, 2025, she would no longer be in her position as District 5 Director. On December 11th, at your regular board meeting, the board voted to fill the vacancy by appointment. In addition to that, they created the ad hoc nominating committee of Director Sutherland, Director Chapman, and Director Dominguez. On December 12th, staff posted the notice of vacancy at the authority office, in our open space reserves, at the Cambrian Community Library. Yes, and on the notice of vacancy advertised the application period as December 12th through January 16th, 2026, with a noon deadline to submit an application. The authority received 5 applications listed here. Mr. Lauren Lewis, Brian Long, Catherine Ming Hyde, Carrie Romanow, and Keith Hertzberg. Staff reviewed the minimum criteria of being over 18, living within the District 5 boundaries, and a registered voter with the Santa Clara County, and confirmed all the applicants met the minimum criteria. As an aside, Carrie Romanow did repeal her application. Pardon me. The board, the nominating committee met with the applicants on Tuesday, December 21st. January 21st, pardon me. So now, the recommended process for the appointment, candidates, the board will invite candidates to come up to the podium to speak for 3 minutes to introduce themselves. You can take public comments following the conclusion of the candidate statements. And then we'll hand it back to the board to deliberate on the options, and then we can call for a motion.
Thank you.
And at this time, I will hand it over to the nominating committee and the board to deliberate.
What, deliberate, or are we going to be taking comments from?
I'll hand it over to you, so you can.
I can say.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So I just wanted to give just a little brief introductory. We had 5 candidates for this position, which is truly amazing, and I think speaks well of the organization and the community interest. And so I do want to thank staff for your ability to do the outreach so that people knew about the opening. So I just wanted to get that on record to say thank you very much. And so I think now is the appropriate time for the candidates to speak. And we have two of the candidates here. Carolyn, do you know if we have any online?
We do not.
Okay, thank you. And the order, I think we're gonna do it in the order in which the applications came in.
Correct.
And so that means that the first person up is Kathy Ming Hai. Lauren's not here.
Lauren's not here, correct.
Ryan's not here,
Brian is not.
and Carrie withdrew.
Yes.
Okay. So Kathy, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. And I do apologize. I picked up a cold last weekend. Good evening, President Sutherland and Honorable Board. I speak this evening to request consideration of my application for appointment to fill the unexpired seat to represent the residents of District 5. The preservation of open space in Santa Clara Valley has been a personal and professional priority for me for over 3 decades. I believe that I possess the practical advocacy and policy experience in addition to the values to well serve this board and this organization, and especially the constituents of District 5. Working to help permanently preserve gems like the Coyote Valley, Marshall Cottle Park, our county trail system and hillsides, and the historic Mount Umunhum have been high points in my career. My work with the founders of the OSA and the relationships I've developed and the friends I've made along the way continue to bring me joy and give me purpose. Please know that if appointed, I will strive to not only honor the wisdom and success of the founders of the OSA, but endeavor to further its mission through new and innovative thinking to expand the physical and social reach of the district to the residents of District 5, which live on the valley floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And our next applicant is Keith. Keith, welcome, and thank you for coming.
Thank you. All right. Well, good evening, Chair and board and professional staff. Lovely to see you all here. My name is Keith Hertzberg, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity to introduce myself and share why I've submitted an application to serve on the Open Space Authority Board as the District 5 Director. I'm a lifelong San Jose and Santa Clara County resident and was born into a region transitioned from the Valley of Heart's Delight into Silicon Valley. With that evolution came profound economic opportunity, but also real loss of agricultural and rural roots of our valley. In too many places, we traded oak groves and native habitat for cul-de-sacs and parking lots. That history is personal to me because my generation inherited a landscape where access to nature often meant getting into a car and driving away from home. In recent years, I've had the opportunity to serve on a couple local campaigns, and I've knocked on several thousand doors across San Jose. And one of my favorite questions to longtime neighbors was, what local landmark do you remember being an orchard or open field? And older residents would tell stories of picking fruit for ice cream money or exploring open land on horseback. These conversations stayed with me because they weren't just nostalgia. They were reminders of what it means for a community to have nature close by and what it feels like when that connection disappears. My own exposure and connection to the outdoors came through my involvement in Boy Scouts as youth, on trails and campouts in places like Henrico and Castle Rock State Parks. Those experiences not only expanded my horizons, but they made me conservation-minded. And when I returned to the suburbs, they also made me wonder, what did my neighborhood look like 100 years ago? What wildlife lived in the creeks before they were fenced and culverted? Those questions are a big part of why I'm here today. Professionally today, I serve as a budget and innovation advisor to San Jose Mayor Matt Mahan. And in this role, I help advance the mayor's fiscal priorities, working closely with city executive leadership on time-sensitive policy partnerships and program decisions. I've also helped strengthen accountability through the city council's annual appointee evaluation process. And I bring hands-on experience in public sector budgeting, prioritization, and collaborative decision-making, skills I would hopefully apply to be a responsible steward to this organization. Prior to this role, I was in a neighborhood outreach role where I served as the District 9 and District 10 liaison for the mayor's office and directly engaged with neighbors in the neighborhoods I was born and raised in and went to school in. I also recently founded the Cahalan-Canoas Neighborhood Association, which, if you're familiar with South San Jose, is right in between Santa Teresa and Blossom Hill, right along Cahalan Avenue, where I was born and raised. And if selected, I would also bring a Gen Z perspective rooted in deep respect for the leaders and stewards who built this agency and a commitment to help carry its mission forward. I see my potential role as being both a learner and a bridge, learning the authority's history, operations, and partnerships while helping make this work more visible, accessible, and compelling, especially to younger residents who want to serve but don't always see a clear path in service. Looking ahead, I'm mindful of the challenges that this organization faces, sustaining public engagement in a crowded world, navigating uncertainty in external funding, and planning for long-term fiscal sustainability and staying steadfast as development pressures continue. I believe conservation is not a luxury, it's an essential community infrastructure for habitat, water quality, climate resilience, fire and flood mitigation, and for simple, irreplaceable benefit of being able to step outside and experience the natural world close to home. I would be honored to help protect these lands so that current and future generations inherit more than stories of what used to be here. Thank you all for your time and consideration, and I look forward to hearing out the process. Thanks.
Thank you, Keith. Carolyn, I lost track. Is it now public comment? Okay, so we have one card. Hi, Dave.
Hi.
It's from Dave Rochelle, and he would like to speak on this item.
Okay, well, hello, and oh, am I, okay, yeah, maybe I could do that, did work too. All right, is this about right? I tend to have a loud voice anyway. Congratulations, Kathy, on your new role in the agency. And all of you board members, thank you. I came to hear the presentation on Coyote Valley, but I noticed Carrie Romanow had applied for the position of director, and I've had some interactions with her through my background as a conservation advocate with Sierra Club, advocating for San Jose clean energy and the climate smart plan and the natural and working lands update. And she was always very professional and very knowledgeable. But I realized, oh, I've met these two in different places at different times, but I hadn't recognized the other names, and I didn't come to disparage them. But I came to put in a good word for Carrie, but I guess I can repeal those good words. So tough luck, Carrie. You know, I'll give you a bad things. Anyway, thank you all. Have a good night.
Thank you for coming, and thank you for coming for the Coyote Valley presentation, and thank you for all the years that you served on the CAC. Appreciate it. Carolyn?
Yes, and now you may open the floor for board and committee deliberation.
Okay, so, I would, as the nominating committee, I would like to say a few words before we begin board deliberation. So, on behalf of the nominating committee, Vice Chair Dominguez and Director Chapman and myself, I'd like to thank each and every one of the applicants. Each of the applicants brought unique strengths with very diverse backgrounds. But what they all had in common was their love of open space and the work done by the Open Space Authority. Preserving open spaces in Santa Clara Valley is a value that is shared by everyone. As the nominating committee, we had a long and deep conversation about the applicants. We would like staff to reach out to the applicants to talk about their opportunities with us. They all have strengths, ideas, and talents they can bring to the Open Space Authority. We did reach a unanimous decision, ask that the board support the appointment of Kathy Ming Hai to the District 5 vacancy. Her application details her decades of experience with the Open Space Authority. She worked on the campaign to create the Open Space Authority, and she wrote the grant to fund it. Her work with the county included the Trail Master Plan and the Agricultural Preserve Study. She has the experiences, strengths, and a proven record of preserving open spaces, and the foresight to focus on agricultural land, which is hugely important to us right now. Land preservation takes time and patience. Personally, I was fortunate to serve with Garnetta, Virginia, Eric, and Kitty. And these founders of the OSA shared their years of experience and wisdom and deepened my understanding of why we do things and served as reminders that this work takes time. Kathy will similarly bring her years of experience and understanding of the history of the OSA to the board. We encourage our colleagues to support her. Vice Chair Dominguez, would you like to make comments?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I want to just start off with saying that, very similarly to what Director Sutherland shared, was very grateful for the staff and their efforts on making this announcement public to get 5 applicants in. It is just a testament of your hard work and the growth of the visibility of the organization. So kudos to all of you for really emphasizing the importance of that role and just continue to do a great job with marketing communication. I also want to take a moment to thank all of the candidates who put themselves forward in public service. It takes real commitment to step into this type of role, especially given the complexity and visibility of this work. I appreciated hearing the perspectives that emphasize public trust, accountability, stewardship of taxpayer resources, particularly as the authority navigates the long-term funding sustainability and increase of development pressure. The interviews reinforced how essential experience in land use, environmental policy, and governance is to this work, as well as the value of community connection and public communication. So overall, I'm encouraged by the depth of interest in serving on OSA and by the shared commitment we heard to protecting our natural lands for future generations.
And I'll go to the other director on the nominee. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I too want to echo my thanks and appreciation to staff for doing an excellent job in outreach. It was kind of mind-blowing to see 5 applications and the quality applications. And I enjoyed the interviews. I enjoyed speaking with every single person. I think you all have a lot to offer. And to give this agency and a different perspective, I learned something from each and every one. I would say the candidates were all aware of the needs of our agency to grow sustainably. You all brought up finance, you all wrote, the threat of development and the importance of the work that we do. That's big because we try very hard to try and reach the public and try and get that message out. And when you're repeating it back to us, that means at least we're successful in doing that. It's a long road. We want to keep doing it. There's a lot of work ahead. And it was a hard decision because, you have 5 good candidates and how do you choose one over the other 4? So I encourage all the candidates to continue working with the agency to find a role. And I do want to share, I do appreciate Kathy's comments. There was something that struck me and I just wanted to share it, that you said that we have 2 challenges ahead of us. One is the threat of no money and one is the threat of big money. That one stuck with me because that is the agency's crossroads right now. We're trying to figure out how do we get to the next level? How do we grow? And how do we meet that challenge head on? So I think that was something that impressed me about you. But again, Keith, I was very impressed And please, I want to see more from you. I really do. I really do. I think you have a lot to offer. And we kind of connected because he's an Eagle Scout. My son's an Eagle Scout too, so. Yes. Anyway, thank you. I really, really appreciate it.
Director Kenneth.
It was so pleased to see 5 applicants. There was a day where we've had to literally beat the bushes to find an applicant. So this is refreshing and it reflects on the organization as a whole. I noticed that only one of the applicants had previously served with the CAC and appeared to defend himself. So it looks like we're down to 2. In going through several of these before, I've never heard an overt recommendation from the nominating committee for one candidate over another, and seems a touch surprising. That said, we're both well-spoken. Keith, you're especially well-spoken. What I appreciate is your sense of history of where we are, because it also means a sense of legacy, where we're going. And you're the only one to address that, and I do appreciate it. So I'm sure whoever we get, we can't lose.
Director Matthews? No. Director Gill? No. Are there any public comments? Okay. Then I guess do we call for a vote? And how do we do this vote, Carol? Can you walk us through it, please?
Absolutely. Based off of the nominating committee's recommendation, I would say you can call for a motion to appoint Catherine Ming Hyde to the vacant District 5 seat to fill the remainder of the current term.
Okay. So I'd like to,
Madam Chair,
yes,
it's at the board's discretion, it's a recommendation, so just someone needs to make a motion in a second for whichever candidate.
okay, thank you. So, I'll entertain what we're doing.
Okay, I will go ahead and make such motion that we appoint Catherine Ming Hyde as the newest board member.
Is there a second? A second. Then we call for a vote. Thank you.
Madam Chair, if there's no other motions, yes, call for.
Okay. Is there another motion then? That's what I should ask for. Okay. Is there another motion? Okay, then I will go ahead and call for a vote.
Director Kenneth,
Abstain.
Director Matthews,
Yes.
Director Chapman,
Yes.
Director Sutherland,
Yes.
Director Dominguez,
Yes.
Director Gill.
Abstain.
And the motion passes with 4 votes.
Thank you. Congratulations. Catherine. Carolyn, do you now do the oath?
We can do the oath of office.
All right, thank you. You're gonna do the oath while we're still in the meeting, right?
Correct.
And then we can,
I guess we should ask are you ready to participate in the meeting tonight?
yes,
Okay. Yes, then we can take the oath and it'll be effective once we get all the oath signed.
okay, please do, thank you.
Do you want to join me up here?
Okay, so you can hold up your right hand and repeat after me. I, Catherine Ming Hyde,
I, Catherine Ming Hyde,
do solemnly swear to affirm
do solemnly swear to affirm
that I will support and defend the Constitution
that I will support and defend the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution
and the Constitution
of the State of California
of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear truth, faith, and allegiance
to the Constitution
to the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution
and the Constitution
of the State of California,
of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
and that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
upon which I am about to enter.
upon which I am about to enter.
Thank you. Let me fill this out. Okay. And then you can sign right there. And then I'll fill in too. It's official.
And I think the plan is that we're gonna give you a little bit of time to do your paperwork.
Mhm.
And then, the rest of us will go take a picture. As the new board. Okay? So Elizabeth, where do we wanna go? So we're gonna take a break and come right back. Okay. call the meeting back to order or do we just continue on?
We can continue on.
Okay, thank you very much. We are now on to new business item number 2, which is to review the current open space authority committees for 2026. And so, appointment of board and staff liaisons. Carolyn, I think you have a presentation on this.
Yes, me again. This one will go a little more smoothly. Thank you, board. Tonight's recommendation is that the chairperson lead the discussion of the standing committee assignments to the Open Space Authority, board committees, and the non-authority bodies for 2026. And then at this time, you can also evaluate the need for additional ad hoc committees or dissolution of any, and to add or remove organizations from the liaison list.
Thank you. And looking at our agenda, the report, it looks like the first committee is the ABC committee, the admin, budget committee. And I believe that those positions are appointed, or they're not, they're just, it's the chair, the vice chair, and the former chair.
Yes, historically, that committee has been chair, vice chair, and past chair. Correct.
And can we vote on these one by one, or do we have to take them as a whole?
No, we'll do it as a whole at the end. So
Okay.
we can go through the current committee assignments and then the non-authority liaison list. And then at the end, the board can vote to approve the assignments as discussed.
And so. Do you want this or should I?
Oh, in the past, we've done it, so we started with ABC, so like, as you said, it's generally the chair, the vice chair and the past chair. That one's pretty much settled, and then, we can go on to land use and stewardship committee, and then CAC, and then so forth.
Okay, and, so. Yes, it would be, I believe it would be Director Chapman, Vice Chair Nunes, and myself on there.
Yeah.
Which also leaves the land use, and which Alex, you chair, right, Lucy?
I'd like to retain that.
Great, and there are now 2 vacancies. So, I'm wondering if there's any board member who would like to be on the land use Lucy committee? Director Gill? Director Gill? Director Minghai?
I'm trying
to find Director-
the schedule that says when they meet.
Land use and stewardship committee meets quarterly in the month of February, July. Oh, I'm sorry, Director Gill just said.
February, April, July, and October.
Correct.
And so. Director Matthews, so would you be interested in serving on that?
On the land use?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Okay, so
there's. Okay.
It's known as the committee that has field trips.
Say again?
It's known as the committee that has field trips.
Cool.
I've never sat on it, but I'm just telling you, that none of the committee that has field trips, so trying to get you guys excited about this.
So that would be Director Kenneth, Gill, and Matt. The other committee that we have is the liaison to the Citizens Advisory Committee. Director Gill, you're currently the alternate.
Alternate is okay for me.
Alternate's good for you. Do I have anybody else interested in being the liaison to the CAC? Going once, going twice. So, you know what? I like it. So, but I was gonna let somebody else take it if they wanted it, so, Director Gill, you filled in for me a couple of times and I really appreciate it, but yes, so that committee would be the same. And the ad hoc committee for the urban grant program. Carolyn, were we gonna have a discussion about the ad hoc committees? Were you gonna make a recommendation or?
For the, the ad hoc committee for the urban open space grant guidelines review is still, relevant.
Okay.
It has not been active in a while, but I believe the, staff would still prefer that committee to be, to have directors assigned to that committee.
So we
It's
know we
three.
have one opening here because Director Alexander is no longer with us. And I would be, if there are two people, I would love to have two people volunteer for that committee. And this is to get familiar. It really helps familiarize everybody with the urban grant program, which is a competitive program, actually, competitive grant program. And we've been able to award $12 million. Is that about right? Through the urban grant program? Did about 12? Oh, cumulative? Yeah, so just so people understand that it's an opportunity to give back to the community and yeah, that's our urban grant program. So I'm looking for two people who would like to serve on that. I'm here, I'd like to volunteer. Okay, wonderful, thank you very much. So Director Ming Hyde. Anyone else? Okay. Okay, and Director Matthews, and this meets on an as-need basis, correct?
Correct.
And then the ad hoc committee for financial stability.
Which is also, I believe, still, I'm looking to the staff members of that committee, we would still like it to continue forward, yeah.
Okay, and that committee right now is Director Chapman, myself and Director Matthews. You'll stay on that? I'll stay on that. Okay, I will stay on it too unless somebody really wants to be on it. Okay, looks like that's.
I wouldn't mind.
You wouldn't mind?
No, I'd like to be part of the financial sustainability of this organization, yeah.
Okay. You got it. It's very interesting. The expense.
And just to reiterate, so that's gonna be Director Matthews, Director Sutherland, and Director Dominguez.
No, Director Chapman, Matthews, and Dominguez. Okay. The EPOC is not us. And then there are our relationships with sister or other organizations that we have relationships with. The Bay Area Ridge Trail, Director Gill is the current director. Would you, yeah, and I get the yes on that. Santa Clara County Parks Commission, we need director to be there and then an alternate.
Through the chair, do we want to assign an alternate for Bay Area Ridge Trail?
We can if anybody is interested.
I could be an alternate to the ridge.
Okay, great, thank you. Vice Chair Dominguez. And then for the County Parks Commission, I'd like to, yes, so Director Ming Hyde will be the liaison to the Parks Commission and an alternate. Anyone care to be the alternate? I'll move down to alternate if we need one. And then the Santa Clara County Special Districts Association, Director Chapman would like to stay there, okay. Director or Vice Chair Dominguez, would you like to stay as the alternate or would somebody else like to fill in as alternate.
Did you miss the song on the dress?
Oh, I'm sorry, I did. I did. Can we, I'll go back to that. Thank you very much, Director. So. Anybody?
I'll take, Vicky Alexander's place on that, since I was an alternate.
Oh, on the salt ponds? Okay,
But I
okay.
don't know if they ever meet.
okay. But I'm actually, I skipped over that one by mistake. So we're at the Special Districts Association. Director Chapman's gonna be the liaison, and if there's somebody who would like to be an alternate to the special districts.
They're a lot of fun.
Director Manhai, would you be interested in being an alternate on this? No, the Special Districts Association, county.
I could, I was looking at being the alternate on that, so. if anybody- that's-
Okay, well, we can get there. But would you like to be the alternate for the Special Districts Association?
I can't, I just don't want to be green.
Oh, no.
Okay, yes.
Okay, perfect. And now going up to the salt ponds. Director Matthews, you expressed the interest to be the liaison, right?
I assume that's an Alviso.
Yes,
Yes, that's fine.
okay. And,
I'll be alternate since that's part of my district.
okay, thank you.
You don't mean that?
Farnborough Bureau, Director Kenneth. Yes, thank you. Director Gills, and thank you. LAFCO, Director Chapman, and then who just said they wanted to be? Director Ming Hai, unless somebody else wants it.
Through the chair, I don't think for LAFCO, because it's a, because you're voted in, correct? I don't think we would put forward an alternate for that county, or for that commission.
Yeah, I don't think there is an alternate. Because actually, I am an alternate to LAFCO members.
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
No alternate to the
Yeah, we
alternate.
don't need, right, we don't need an alternate.
Thank you very much. The Santa Clara County Sustainability Commission. Director Alexander, so we need a liaison, and Director Chapman is the alternate if she chooses to renew.
Do they meet?
No. Did I hear sign me up?
Yeah.
Up for what?
Well, it doesn't meet, Alex.
It doesn't meet.
Santa Clara County Sustainability Commission.
Sure.
Okay. That'll be Director Kennett and Director Chapman. Do you want to continue to be the alternate or, okay. The Santa Clara Valley Habitat Agency.
Yeah.
Okay, Director Kennett would stay with that. And then I am the alternate, and unless somebody wants it, I'm willing to continue to be the alternate. Okay. Santa Clara Valley Water Commission, Director Gill. Yes, he's gonna, and then, would somebody like to be the alternate for that?
I work with them anyway, as of the Farm Bureau, so.
Thank you. Director Kennett is the alternate. And the Valley Water Agricultural Water Advisory Committee.
John, do.
You're good there, and Dr. Kennett, you're good being the alternate?
Yeah.
All right. Carolyn, can you read back everything, and then we can go ahead and make sure everybody agrees and that we don't have any typos, and then go from there.
Okay. For Administration and Budget Committee, the board members are Director Helen Chapman, Abby Sutherland, and Lisano Dominguez. For Land Use and Stewardship Committee, it's Director Kennett, Director Gill, and Director Matthews. For Citizens Advisory Committee Liaison, it's Director Sutherland with Director Gill as the alternate. For the Ad Hoc Committee for Urban Open Space Grant Guidelines Review, Director Sutherland, Director Ming Hyde, and Director Matthews.
I think we only need two.
Three. It's a 3-member committee as well.
The ad hoc committee for urban grant,
Correct.
oh, there are only 2 names on there.
Because I think Director Flaher was on that committee.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Okay, thank you. That's
Mhm,
my confusion. Okay, so I'm sorry, it's the directors are,
Director Sutherland, Director Ming Hyde, and Director Matthews.
thank you.
And that's land use stewardship.
No, this is the urban grant program.
Oh, urban.
And you are on the, what we call the Lucy, the land use.
Stewardship one.
Okay. Next is the Ad Hoc Committee for Financial Sustainability. That's Director Matthews, Director Dominguez, and Director Chapman.
Yes.
No members on Expenditure Plan Oversight Committee. And then for the non-authority liaisons for Bay Area Ridge Trail Council, we have Director Gill and Director Dominguez. For our Santa Clara County Parks Commission, Director Ming Hyde and Director Sutherland as alternate. Fall Ponds Restoration Forum is Director Matthews with Director Chapman as alternate. Santa Clara County Special Districts Association, Director Chapman and Director Ming Hyde as alternate. For Santa Clara County Farm Bureau, it's Director Kennett with Director Gill as alternate. For Santa Clara County LAFCO, it's Director Chapman. Santa Clara County Sustainability Commission, Director Kennett with Director Chapman as alternate. Santa Clara Valley Habitat Agency, Director Kennett with Director Sutherland as alternate. Santa Clara Valley Water Commission, Director Gill with Director Kennett as alternate. And Valley Water Agricultural Water Advisory Committee is Director Gill with Director Kennett as alternate.
Great. Any board discussion? Are we all good with these?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
you should entertain a motion to approve. this.
Oh, sure. Well, okay, do we, public comment? I'm sorry, do we have any public comment?
They're not.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion.
Also vote.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Moved by Director Kennett, seconded by Director Chapman. So we will vote on, the appointment of the board and staff liaisons for 2026 for the Open Space Authority committees, and agency.
Director Kennett,
Yes.
Director Matthews,
Yes.
Director Chapman,
Yes.
Director Sutherland,
Yes.
Director Dominguez,
Yes.
Director Gill,
Yes.
Director Ming Hyde.
Yes. That motion passes unanimously. Thank you all very much for your additional service. We are now on to item number 3 on the agenda, which is to receive an update from special legal counsel on the Santa Clara Valley Fire Protection, Clean Water and Open Space Act Citizens Initiative. And I believe, Carolyn, that is you, and then we will have someone zooming in.
Correct. I'm sorry. Special Legal Counsel Robert Perlmutter is joining us via Zoom, so I will hand it over to him and he will provide the update.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Caroline. Good evening, members of the board. As Caroline mentioned, Robert Perlmutter, your outside election counsel, and just wanted to give a brief informational update on the Santa Clara Valley Wildfire Protection, Clean Water, and Open Space Initiative. As you recall, this is the parcel tax initiative that would impose, if adopted by the voters, would impose a 2 cent per building square foot parcel tax on buildings within the jurisdiction. The update is as follows. On a couple of weeks ago, on January 5th, the proponents of the initiative filed copies of their initiative petition with the clerk of the board containing 56,490 signatures. That's approximately 20,000 more signatures than the required number of valid signatures for this to be placed on the ballot. So the county registrar of voters under the elections code is now in the process of verifying that there's a sufficient number of valid signatures within those 56,000, and that's basically involves reviewing a random sample of about 3% of the total number of signatures to compare them to the registration rolls and make sure they're valid signatures of voters within your jurisdiction. The registrar of voters has until February 18th under state law to complete that process. And if the registrar determines that there are sufficient valid signatures to qualify the measure for the ballot, then the clerk of the board has a mandatory ministerial duty under the elections code to present that certification to this board at its very next meeting, regularly scheduled meeting, which would be February 26th. In my firm's experience, having worked on a lot of these, given the number of signatures submitted, it is very, very likely that the petition will qualify for the ballot at this point, but we need to wait for the official certification by the registrar. And if it's not certified, as I said, it will be presented to the board at your next meeting on February 26th. The board then would, in this case, have likewise a mandatory duty just to place the initiative on the ballot. The board cannot change the initiative in any way if it qualifies. And likewise, for ordinary initiatives that don't involve tax measures, the board would have an option of simply adopting the measure outright if it wanted to, rather than going to the voters. But because this is a tax, the only choice is to present it to the voters. And because of the timing, the board would have the option of presenting that to voters either at the June primary or the November election. Staff anticipates recommending, again, if this measure qualifies, that the board do so at the June election. And so going forward, assuming the measure qualifies, staff would present a proposed resolution at your next board meeting to place the measure on the ballot. That would include the ballot question and address a whole series of related issues. That we'd have a detailed staff report that would walk you through those issues and your choices at that time. And that is my update. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. We can now open the floor to the board for questions or comments. We'll start with Kenneth.
Well, I'm interested on our position and how we are to address this, if we be addressed.
I'm not sure he was able to hear. Were you really hearing?
Yeah, no, the audio was a little tough. Maybe speaking up.
Members of the board, assuming we're approached on this, how are we to address anyone who approaches us on this topic?
So I think I understand the question. How are you to address it? So as we've discussed in the past, and we'll be providing more detailed guidance in the future, there are limits under state law that prohibit the board members as well as staff from using OSA resources to campaign for or against the measure, to tell anyone how to vote. You can certainly share your own personal opinions about the initiative, and you can provide factual information, and we're intending to work with staff to provide you some some factual information about the measure. But you can also, if you're uncertain about the issue, I would recommend referring people to staff who can respond. And the board is free to take a position on the initiative if assuming it qualifies. We have recommended in the past and continue to do so that you wait to do that until you see whether or not the measure qualifies, and we'll have more detailed guidance on that for your February board meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Director Matthews? No. Director Chapman? Director Keel? Thank you. This is an informational item only. So there's no board action needed. So thank you very much for presenting to us, Pearl.
Sure, you're welcome. Look forward to it.
To the next board meeting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Through the chair, do you want to take public comments?
Of course I do.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any public comments?
Well, later, not this one.
They're not.
Great, thank you very much. Our next item is item number 4. And Nick, this is to receive a presentation on the draft conceptual alternatives, the Coyote Valley Conservation Areas Master Plan. Thank you very much for the paper handouts.
That's
And wonderful pictures.
great. Well, good evening, directors. Nick Perry, Coyote Valley Project Director, Long Range Planning Manager for the Open Space Authority. Welcome, Director Ming Hyde. Happy to be here tonight to share the conceptual alternatives, the draft conceptual alternatives for the Coyote Valley Conservation Areas Master Plan, or CV Camp for short. We've got a lot of content to go through tonight. So you have the packets in front of you, and Dave, I think you got one for yourself too. So there's one more copy in case anyone needs one. But yeah, let's get into the presentation. What we're going to do tonight is give a brief project background just to make sure everyone's up to speed on the background of CV Camp. I'll then turn it over to Erin Hebert, our Natural Resources Manager, to talk about the habitat and watershed restoration alternatives our team has developed. I'll then present our public access and agricultural design focus area concepts, and then we'll talk about next steps and what's to come in the project. So our goals for tonight, our first goal is to really just to introduce the board and anyone else who's here tonight to these conceptual alternatives for the Coyote Valley Conservation Area Master Plan properties. And I really do want to emphasize the word introduce. These are still draft. There's still lots of details to work out. These are conceptual, so there's still a long road ahead of us to getting these to where we want them to be to implement. We have a long road ahead in terms of picking a preferred alternative later next year, actually this year, 2026. We're going to get to that point. So tonight is really not about picking favorites or saying, I like this option, I don't like that option. It's really about talking about everything that's on the table and making sure we understand it and to get some preliminary feedback before we go out to the public and to stakeholders and our science advisors in the spring to share these same conceptual alternatives with them to get their feedback as well. So with that, I will go into project background, and I will also say, again, this is a lot of content. I acknowledge that before we jump into it. Feel free to follow along in your packages. Also happy to schedule follow-up one-on-ones with any of you to talk about these in more detail. And we also plan field trips. Lucy, February 12th will be a field trip to look at some of the sites that we're talking about today. So many more opportunities to learn more about the project as we continue into the spring. So project background. I think most of you are familiar with this graphic. This yellow area is the CV Camp properties. This master plan is a collaboration between the Open Space Authority, which is the lead agency, and our core partners, the City of San Jose and the Peninsula Open Space Trust, the other land owning entities in this project area. And for those of you who maybe saw the press release last Friday, happy to share that that gap in the project area now known as Midway Fields has been filled. And so the project area is now 1,600 acres, stretching from Laguna Seca on the north to Palm Avenue on the south, contiguous, very exciting. We have most of the Fisher Creek floodplain. Fisher Creek is the blue line that flows along the western side of the valley into Coyote Creek, which then flows into San Jose. Just briefly on the historic ecology of this area, This is taken from San Francisco Estuary Institute data. It shows what was here before European colonization. And Caddy Valley was this rich mosaic of valley floor habitats, freshwater wetland, perennial ponds, wet meadows filled with willows, oak savannas, oak woodlands. You can see the project area outlined in red and kind of see how it crosses that cross section of habitat types. We can't go back to this. There's lots of things that have changed. There's climate change, but this is still our inspiration. That's what we're looking to recreate to the extent we can to create a rich mosaic of habitats to achieve our conservation goals in this landscape. As I mentioned, lots of change. This picture is a before and present of the Laguna Seca, the historic freshwater wetland, which was once 1,000 acres in the northern part of Caddy Valley. On the top, you see what it looked like in 1916 before it was drained. Then you see the draining in progress in the 19-teens, those middle photos, and you see it today. And if you go out there right now, the laguna has started to reemerge. The birds are flying around. It's bright green. It looks pretty much like this picture. It still persists as a wetland, and we have lots of opportunities to restore it, which Aaron will describe shortly. Caddy Valley remained an agricultural area, as this 1940 aerial shows. Orchards closer to Monterey Road, more row crops and grazing and hay closer to Fisher Creek on the west side of the valley. And it remained remarkably open space until the present, back and forth development pressures, and then the successful conservation that happened in the 20-teens and the 2020s. In 2017 was a pivotal year for Caddy Valley. The landscape linkage report was published, which really found how important and critical Caddy Valley is to achieve this landscape linkage between the Santa Cruz Mountains and the Diablo Range and ensure that wildlife, especially in the Santa Cruz Mountains, do not become geographically and genetically isolated and have a cascade effect on the ecosystem there. Caddy Valley is one of the few places where we can achieve that linkage, which makes it especially important for conservation. That is not our only goal, though. This graphic represents the 10 goals that we have for CV Camp, kind of the 10 plan elements. On the left, you have, and they're grouped into the 2 teams that we hired or got on board last year to help us work on this phase of the project. So on the left, you have the Connecting People to Caddy Valley team led by the firm CMG Landscape Architecture. They're responsible for all the beautiful graphics that you're seeing in your packets and you'll see on the screen. They're really focused on public access, interpretation, and amenities that might benefit the local economy, and then how we kind of create graphics so we can engage the public both now and into the future. On the right, you have the Caddy Valley Landscape Linkage team led by the firm H.T. Harvey. That's really focused on wildlife, habitat restoration, water resources, and adapting to climate change. And in the middle, you have kind of the Venn diagram of those 2 teams where we're focusing on local agriculture and we're being supported by our advisor, Sabella Kraus, and of course, Ana Regalado is working very hard as a part of that team, creating some great ideas that you'll see in a minute. And we're looking at transportation and streets, and what do we do about these streets that bisect Coyote Valley, and how do we work with our partners at the San Jose Department of Transportation and county roads to create better designs for people, for bikes, for wildlife, while still keeping traffic moving smoothly. And then lastly, just keeping in mind the big picture vision. Like, these are 1,600 acres, but it's part of a much larger landscape. And how do they fit in? How did those acres fit into the larger vision for Coyote Valley? So where we've been, 2023 was all about studies and assessments and boring reports that I will not make you read. 2024 was about synthesizing all that information and all the findings of those reports, sharing those out with the public through a series of events and workshops that we did towards the end of 2024. You see some photos there, and publishing our Understanding Coyote Valley report. In winter and spring of last year, staff worked on an opportunities and constraints report. It was really geared towards chronicling everything we know about the landscape and handing it over to the new consultant team so they could digest it as fast as possible to get to where we are now, which is the conceptual alternatives. And that's really figuring out a variety of different ways of achieving our goals on those 1,600 acres. So we started the conceptual alternatives phase in September. It's been a whirlwind. We've gone from drawing on trace paper in this room and putting all the ideas on the table to what you see before you tonight. So I'm very excited to share where we are right now. So just to reemphasize that timeline, you see where we've been, what's complete. We're more than halfway through the project. We're in the conceptual alternatives phase. We're going to be doing public outreach, which I'll talk about a little bit more towards the end of the presentation this spring. And then we'll move to creating an alternative that we want to move forward into environmental review and then eventually into the plan document, which would take place in 2027. So with that, I will turn it over to Aaron to start having us take a look at what we've got in store with the habitat and floodplain restoration.
Thanks, Nick. Good evening. Nice to meet you, Director Ming Hyde. My name is Aaron Aber. I'm the Natural Resources Manager here. And like Nick mentioned, I'm going to kind of focus on the habitat and watershed restoration side of this project. So a little bit about our existing conditions in Coyote Valley. I think you saw some of the photos that Nick shared. You've probably driven through this landscape and seen different agricultural fields. I'll just say at a high level, there's kind of 4 general types we see in Coyote Valley. There's this kind of striped green color, which is really more intensive forms of agriculture like row crops, hay. There's a defunct walnut orchard. And then kind of in the lighter green color, we have grasslands that are sometimes hay production, sometimes grazing operations. And then we have these kind of narrow strips of habitat, mostly seen in Fisher Creek, a little bit in Laguna Seca, like Nick was showing you in that photo. And then there's kind of these remnants of development. Some of this development was kind of a precursor to failed larger development schemes like the dam in Laguna Seca or fill on the Hill property in North Coyote Valley. So some of the gray there is this kind of like either compacted dirt or concrete or something that really doesn't support habitat. So right now there is some nice habitat, but it's really nothing like that historic ecology that Nick was showing you earlier. So Nick mentioned that a primary reason that this landscape is so important is because of that narrow connection between the Santa Cruz Mountains and the Diablo Range. He showed you that figure where there's really no other place realistically that wildlife can move between these 2 mountain ranges for a couple reasons. One, a lot of the valley is developed, and 2, in many places, the mountain ranges are kind of far apart, where right here in Coyote Valley, it's both undeveloped and they really come together. So what you see in this kind of yellow color on both sides of it is really this core wildlife linkage area. One of the things I'll highlight is that our partners at Post are working on wildlife crossings. You may have seen some publicity about their partnership with Valley Transportation Agency. They're working on crossing structures along Monterey Road, which kind of bounds our project in the east. And they're also undertaking studies in partnership with Caltrans on Highway 101, just hop, skip, and a jump over. So that's kind of the Diablo side of the project. And then, in the Santa Cruz Mountains, I think staff has briefed you on other development threats in that area that might constrain wildlife movement. But for our 1,600 acres, I would highlight a couple things that one, there's these sort of pockets of development within Coyote Valley. Some of you may be familiar with the IBM campus that's there. And, wildlife really don't like interacting with people, right? They're quite averse. They want to avoid people as much as possible. There's a whole body of scientific literature about the effects of people on wildlife. For instance, near every trail, there are less birds and less bird song because birds really don't want to be around sort of the threat of humans. So kind of one of the core ideas of creating protected wildlife linkages is really managing that human development and human presence in the landscape. So one of the things the literature shows us is that kind of a minimum viable wildlife corridor is about 1.25 miles wide at minimum. Now that's quite a big area, especially in Silicon Valley, right? But what you can see is that in North Coyote Valley and Laguna Seca and Tulare Hill and Tulare Meadows, that sort of north part of this figure, there's about that real estate. However, when you kind of swing south and you're going between, say, IBM and Santa Teresa and Bailey Avenue, that's a really sort of narrow constriction for wildlife to get through. So to create this wildlife linkage, and the reason I sort of belabor this point is really this whole idea of how do we create a sound, resilient wildlife linkage is like the basis of design for almost everything else you're going to see in the rest of this deck. So I think this is a pretty good figure that depicts this sort of general idea. But I mean, from a wildlife's perspective, the more the merrier. And then that creates this kind of design challenge of like, how do you integrate people and opportunities for people to engage in nature and agriculture in this landscape? So to that end, we've created sort of these three general zones in our 1,600-acre area. In green, you really see what is the sort of wildlife corridor zone or the habitat focus area. That's about 70% of the 1,600 acres thereabouts, so the vast majority of it. And then in order to avoid really impacting that wildlife corridor, we've programmed a lot of agriculture and access, generally in kind of the southeast, and that's what you see in that yellow as part of this diagram. And then there's kind of this middle zone, the transition zone that is kind of between these two types of land use and sort of planning zones. So I think this is a good kind of figure in mind to sort of understand some of the why behind our proposals. So getting a little bit deeper, our Habitat team has created these three alternatives for habitat and watershed restoration. And they really range from limited to moderate to extensive grading. And that's really the amount of earthwork and sort of rearrangement that will sort of achieve our habitat goals. They differ in cost. We don't have cost estimates. We're not really going to talk about cost estimates, but the more dirt you move, the higher the cost. The less amount, the lower the cost. So you can kind of infer that from some of these alternatives. One of the things that they all share and that I would highlight is there's a lot of that real estate available for oak restoration, for getting back towards that more historic ecology in many ways. I think the bigger challenge is actually on the watershed side of things, and we'll talk about, how to move water across this landscape that now has a lot of development around it. For the sake of brevity, I'm actually not going to spend a lot of time talking about the moderate grading option. We're just going to kind of focus on the two sort of outer ends. So we're looking at south of Bailey here, the southern half of the project area, and this is the limited grading option. And I guess what I would highlight is some of its main features are using Fisher Creek where it is today. And as some of you know, this is really an agricultural ditch that was built in 1916. It's got about one tree wide on each side of it. So it's really nothing like a sort of natural channel. But with some improvements, we could make it more like a natural stream system, really improve it in place, put some beaver dam analogs, some small natural sort of levees in the middle of it to impound water, and create some wetlands in the northern part of the project area. I'll highlight sort of west of Fisher Creek, which is kind of this wildlife corridor zone. You see a lot of oak woodland, oak savanna sort of specifically, as well as grasslands that are kind of transitioning around some of the wetlands. So a lot of opportunity to create cover for that wildlife movement. One of the reasons we're interested in doing oak restoration in particular is that it'll allow critters that use cover, particularly bobcats and mountain lions. They're not going to be walking in open fields, right? They really want to be kind of hiding. They're predators, they're surprise predators in many cases. So that's part of the basis of design, and it's similar to the historic ecology. On the more extensive grading option, this option, the big difference with this one is it involves moving Fisher Creek all the way to the west side of the valley, sort of bowing it out. That's actually the natural low point in the valley. It's a little sort of counterintuitive or different than many valleys. But moving the creek to the west, this puts it further away from Santa Teresa, which has some flooding benefits. It creates a longer, bigger sort of riparian system. And it also creates a pathway for wildlife that really like to move along creeks to be further away from Santa Teresa and some of our public access. So yeah, this option is pretty expensive because it involves grading a whole new channel. It's a big, audacious kind of version of it. And we also create wetlands, do oak restoration in this. So definitely a compelling option. Headed north to the north half of the project area, I'm going to focus a little bit on Laguna Seca. You may recall those pictures that Nick was showing you. This is the limited grading option. In this option, we're really doing targeted grading of that wetland that's there today. Make it deeper, make it wider, activate more water in there for migratory birds. Same thing will happen in South Laguna Seca. Dig it out a little bit, access groundwater, create more extensive riparian habitats and wetland habitats. habitats. This is really where the water in Coyote Valley wants to flow. It's where the groundwater sort of rises up. So this is a sort of cheaper, more targeted way of reaching some of those habitat goals. This option, in fact, all of the options include moving Fisher Creek to the west. Right now, it currently parallels Santa Teresa. If you've ever walked that kind of busted sidewalk, Fisher Creek is just right there. And that really poses two problems from a watershed and ecology standpoint. One, flooding of Santa Teresa Road because it's just right there. Secondly, it's actually kind of a barrier for wildlife because it's so deep and so in size. So many wildlife wouldn't want to actually cross through this area, go down into the creek and up out of it. So moving it further away will allow wildlife to move into this key part of our wildlife corridor. So pretty much every option includes that of like, let's reroute this creek to the west. So this next one is the more extensive grading option in Laguna Seca, and this gets us something like our more historic ecology kind of condition, where through a combination of grading and moving Fisher Creek, we've really activated as much of Laguna Seca as possible. In order to achieve that, we've substantially removed large sections of the existing dam. Those of you who have been out on tours know that that dam sort of bisects the property. You can drive over it, but it really disconnects the hydrology so that that big wetland that used to be there is now kind of cut in half, just sort of necessarily. That dam today provides some flood control benefit. So it does some good things from a flooding standpoint. And as many of you know, San Jose, other areas are built in these floodplains, right? So if we're going to do this option, we have to offset that loss of flood storage somehow. There are a couple ways to do that. One idea is to actually put a berm or sort of lip around the edge of Laguna Seca to sort of create more storage at top. So kind of a different visual effect by having a sort of lip on the edge of Laguna Seca, like along Santa Teresa. That's really the same idea as like raising up the road itself. You know, if the road is higher, the storage behind it will be just a little bit bigger. I'll say this part of the project in particular awaits much more refined modeling. This is a very tricky thing to sort of model in our system. And so this is probably the most provisional information I'm giving you because we really need to dot our I's and cross our T's in order to come up with more sort of specific recommendations about how to deal with some of these issues. But at least from a habitat standpoint, this option is really quite appealing. Very briefly, I'll just highlight that middle path that I didn't describe in figures, but is in your packet. Instead of removing the dam, we put a very small diameter pipe through it, which allows some of that flow, but sort of mitigates the bigger effects of removing the dam. Fisher Creek, instead of being routed to the west in this middle option, is sort of made more sinuous and more natural in its place, but again, with more grading than that sort of limited option. So, I mean, I think at a high level, what I'd like the board to know is that we can really achieve some of our wildlife corridor goals through almost any of these. I'll say the watershed restoration and sort of how to best use the available water and the associated cost and sort of earthworks. That part is still kind of, we're doing more modeling, but, all three of these alternatives, I think, sort of paint a picture of what's possible out there. And with that, I'll hand it back to Nick to talk about the trails.
Thank you, Aaron. So one of our main goals with CV Camp is to connect people to nature. And with all that wonderful restoration that Aaron talked about, there's even more of a desire to get people out there to be able to experience this landscape and how it's already remarkable. It's going to become all the more remarkable if we start to implement those restoration actions that Aaron just described. So how are we going to do that? One of the main ways is regional trails and connections. I'll say that this body of work is still very high level, still very diagrammatic, still lots of things to work out with our transportation partners, but want to get you up to speed on what we're thinking of doing to fill some gaps in the regional trail network. So this diagram might be a little bit hard to read on the screen. That's not too bad, but it might be easier to follow along on your paper. But this is looking at the regional trail network in Coyote Valley, the connections and destinations that exist here. And there's two regional trails in particular that come through Coyote Valley that we've been studying closely. One is the Coyote Valley Trail, and that goes north-south. It would connect Santa Teresa County Park to Coyote Valley Open Space Preserve, roughly running parallel to Santa Teresa Boulevard. The second is a segment of the Bay Area Ridge Trail, and that would kind of come off of that Coyote Valley Trail along Santa Teresa and go from Santa Teresa to Coyote Creek Parkway and then Mayana Yakima further to the east. So an east-west trail that kind of crosses the project area. CV Camp has the opportunity to design and implement the biggest gaps in those trails through Coyote Valley so that one day you could travel on bike, on horse, albeit foot, from Coyote Valley Open Space Preserve to Santa Teresa County Park. So we're looking at where should we put those alignments in the CV Camp properties? Where do we want to put them in the city or county right-of-way where there's extra space next to the roadway? And how can we do that in a way that sensitively weaves around the really wonderful habitat areas and wildlife linkages that we're trying to create? I will say that we're also working to look at how do we improve bike transportation through the area. So that's represented in the green line. So there's existing bike lanes in some places. How might we improve those to make them feel safer for cyclists? And then the other really remarkable thing I think about the regional transportation network in Coyote Valley is we have a bus line that goes through Coyote Valley and runs about every 15 minutes. And there are bus stops at every major intersection. So how can we connect directly to those bus stops via the trail network so that people can go from the multi-use trail to the bus, vice versa, and not have to rely on cars to access this open space, which is a really, I think, fantastic opportunity that Coyote Valley presents. When we're designing this trail network, there's an area in particular that we're spending a lot of time looking at. It's a design challenge. That's what I'm going to talk about next. It's mid-Coyote Valley. So I'm going to zoom into the map. We'll look a little bit more closely. Here in mid-Coyote Valley, we have a kind of tricky obstacle course to navigate through to figure out how do we get from the existing Coyote Valley Open Space Preserve, I'll use the cursor, down here, up to the intersection of Bailey and Santa Teresa and to points north. So we have two alternatives that we started to kind of narrow in on. Both do the same thing from the Coyote Valley Open Space Preserve. They go through the North Meadow. They cross what is called Fisher Creek Branch D, which flows through the North Meadow. They skirt around the edge of the CV Camp properties. Then they cross the main branch of Fisher Creek. And then one option goes along the eastern side of Fisher Creek, kind of at the seam between the agricultural fields and the creek. The other option, which is an alternate option, would go closer to Santa Teresa Boulevard. Both of these options have trade-offs. The option closer to the creek, more of a shaded experience. You're in the seam between the riparian, the tree-covered area along the creek, and the agricultural fields, more of a nature experience. But you're also further pinching that wildlife corridor, and you're closer to those sensitive areas and closer to that corridor that animals currently like to move along with the cover that the creek provides. The alternate option has the distinction of requiring that the Open Space Authority or our partners would need to acquire from willing sellers two in-holdings that currently exist along Santa Teresa Boulevard. It also would have a complicated effect on the farm fields and having people closer to the road. Both of these options we think would be great trail experiences. There's a lot more work to do to think about them and their details. The main goal is to figure out how do we get from point A to point B, and we think these two would achieve that with trade-offs in either one. Since you probably have never been back there, just to give you a sense of what this looks like when you do cross Fisher Creek Branch D, so you've left the Coyote Valley staging area parking lot, you head north, you cross the creek, and this is springtime, so you have this beautiful view of the rolling hills in the distance, the open fields, which we restored as oak savanna and wetland. You have marshy areas that are fascinating, but would also be technically challenging to build trails on, and we'll get to that as we get further into design. But we think both of these options would be really nice experiences for people that would provide a unique valley floor and accessible trail experience different from the hill preserves that are typical of our area. So that's connections. I'm now going to switch gears and talk about destinations. So we have 4 public access and agricultural design focus areas that I'm going to highlight in the presentation. Before I'll do that, Aaron shared this diagram with the 3 zones. I'll say that all 3 zones, we want to connect people to nature in them. It's just how we do that changes. So in the green zone, you're going to see guided hikes, interpretive programs, things that are more curated to really be sensitive to the habitats that are in there and making sure that we're not having adverse impacts on that landscape linkage we're trying to create. In the orange, you have areas where we're going to put a lot of amenities. That's where the trails will go, the staging areas, the parking lots, the farm stand, which you'll see in a few slides, things like that in the orange. And then in the green, the kind of light green in between that transition zone, that's where we're really trying to do the weaving between these two different sides of the spectrum. And that's where that trail diagram I was showing you just a minute ago tries to navigate some obstacle courses. The 4 areas that we'll talk about today, Laguna Seca Overlook, really this is about having people be able to look out across the wetland and see it and observe it and see the seasons change and just the transformation of the landscape from year to year too, and be able to understand this dynamic place and how it's changing over time. Then you have the North Caddy Valley Hill Hub. We are now calling what may have been in the past referred to as Spreckles Hill briefly, the North Caddy Valley Hill. I'll just say, if those of you who are here for Caddy Valley Planning intern Braden Will's presentation a couple board meetings ago, the name Spreckles Hill was probably only used by developers starting in the 90s. People we've talked to who grew up in Caddy Valley called it something different. We have at least a few different names that have been heard all the time. So for now, temporary name, to be determined later what we call in the future. For now, we're just calling it the North Caddy Valley Hill, or the Hill for short, or the NCV Hill. You can choose your acronym if you'd like. But the North Caddy Valley Hill is really a hub of activity. It's where we can have people really get immersed in the landscape, do a short half-mile hike to the top of the hill, experience things at the base of the hill that connect them to nature, and just have a wonderful kind of immersive experience. The third one is the Caddy Valley Hub. This is right next to our Caddy Valley staging area. And what's exciting about that is in the future, from that hub, you'll be able to go in all directions and have open space experiences into the hills of the Caddy Valley Open Space Preserve, down to Tilton Ranch, up into the CV camp lands. And so how do we take advantage of that kind of node of activity and put amenities there that can serve the greatest population? And the last design focus area we're calling the Palm Avenue Gateway. And this is really where we're focusing on the agricultural side of CV camp and connecting people to all that agriculture has to offer in Coyote Valley. So we will go through these 4 areas quickly. I will say that we have 3 plan graphic types that our team has developed, led by CMG Landscape Architecture. These are all geared at helping stakeholders, the public, you all, us, understand the ideas that we were talking about. So we have visualizations that are really meant to evoke the experience, so like on the ground, kind of artistic renderings of what it might look like to be there in those places. We have aerial diagrams that are kind of bird's eye view, loose diagrams that show spatial relationships between different activities and amenities and trails. And then we have traditional plan views that get pretty detailed. And that's where actually the most amount of work, I think, has gone into creating these and figuring out the spatial, layout of everything. But for the sake of tonight's presentation, I'm going to focus on the visualizations and the diagrams because I don't think those are the easiest to understand quickly. But I invite you to look at the plan views in your packet if you want to get more into the details. So starting with the Laguna Seca Overlook. So we have a few options for each of these 4 areas, and I'll try to briefly describe the differences between them. So for Laguna Seca, some commonalities at this overlook area: views of the restored wetlands, interpretive signage that explains what's happening there, seating and observation platforms where people can safely look out onto the landscape. And what's different about the 3 options you're about to see is where this takes place. So one option, we call it the berm overlook, takes advantage of an existing berm that was built probably in the early 2000s. And it allows you to look out over the northern branch of Laguna Seca, kind of at a lower elevation, and look to the south and kind of see the wetland as it starts to get restored. And all 3 of these options, I will say, would be accessed via a multi-use trail that would be running in the city right-of-way. There's a lot of extra right-of-way on Santa Teresa Boulevard here that was once dedicated for an expressway, but now we want to repurpose in partnership with the city as a multi-use trail. I mentioned earlier the different types of public access happening in the green zone. This is an area where we have existing ranch roads and access roads that we can continue to use for docent-led hikes and activities to take people with our wonderful interpretive staff and volunteers out into this landscape on more guided activities beyond these trails, which be open on more frequent basis or for the general public. The second option goes a little bit further. It goes to a hill that has, if you've driven on Santa Teresa, you've seen that one lone oak tree up there standing by itself on the north edge of Laguna Seca. That overlook kind of wraps around that. It has a kind of a slightly more removed view of Laguna Seca. You can see the view there, slightly more expansive though, because you're higher up. It has the trade-off of it goes further into the landscape linkage zone, so potentially more detrimental to wildlife. So each of these has different pros and cons to them. And then the last option, it's kind of hard to see in this diagram, but this is actually utilizing a portion of the dam and letting people go right into the middle of the property, walking along the dam, and then they would swing north onto a boardwalk that would be at level with the dam. And from there, you'd kind of be immersed in the property and you could look north to Laguna Seca and see the view that's pictured here. Trade-off here is that when you get that far south, for some reason, the freeway noise is a lot more prevalent. I guess the Tulare Hill blocks it when you're further north. So again, there's trade-offs to each of these options, but we each think they'd be wonderful experience for people to observe Laguna Seca. Next focus area, the North Coyote Valley Hill Hub. So here is the rendering of that. So for those of you who have been to the top of the hill, briefly known as Spreckles Hill, this is the view from the top of the hill looking south. So you can see Santa Teresa Boulevard right here. Right, I put that in the wrong place. El Toro would be visible right where that use is if I didn't put it in the wrong place. But really the view would be looking at the agricultural lands along Santa Teresa, as well as the floodplain restoration, or the watershed restoration that Aaron just described. And in terms of amenities at the top of the hill, the things that we're investigating are, of course, seating, interpretive signage, a small area for gathering and interpretive programs. And then one of our science advisors made the great point, like, what an amazing place this would be to do volunteer-based plant restoration, because you're up there, you're doing native plant restoration, maybe creating some more shade, like oak trees for gathering, and you're taking in this view of this landscape while you're doing that. So we're interested in pursuing that idea too. So a few different options for how the larger site around the hill is laid out, and these all kind of go from light, medium to high in terms of their level of amenities. The light option has a staging area parking off of Laguna Avenue. From there, there is an outdoor classroom, and that's if you've been to Ma'ana Yakima, Coyote Ridge, it's an outdoor shaded area where a school group of 40 or so people can gather and have an interpretive program outside with seating and shade. And we'd want to have that pretty close to the staging area. This is all connected to that multi-use trail that I was describing earlier, going north to Santa Teresa County Park and south to Coyote Valley Open Space Preserve. You would have habitat restoration in this zone too, like continued restoration of the wetland at the base of the hill, where the hill trail, which is about a half-mile long, goes up 100 feet, intersects with the multi-use trail, opportunity for a picnic area or someplace where people could stop and take a breath or enjoy a lunch. And then it's not labeled here, but that's also at both the corner of Laguna and at the corner of Bailey, we would have direct access to the bus stops that exist there so that people could take the bus and enjoy these amenities. The second option is actually in your packet, a 2A and 2B. I'll focus on 2B for the sake of brevity. But 2B moves that parking area further to the north so that it's closer to the hill itself. It adds another feature, restoration learning gardens. And the idea here is that these are areas where we really let people get their hands dirty, do really active restoration. It's less about maybe the wildlife in this case, but more about people having taking it apart and creating something beautiful with native plants along the multi-use trail. I think everything else is the same. And then the last option, the high amenity option. This option, there's this idea that Aaron's team is exploring with the larger CV Camp team of if we want to construct a native plant nursery in Coyote Valley. And this nursery could be 1 to 2 acres. We're touring native plant nurseries all throughout the Bay Area to get inspired and see precedents. But the idea here is we could grow the plants that we'd be using to restore Coyote Valley. And the potential benefit of doing that on the CV Camp properties or doing that in general for the agency is that we have a lot of opportunity for programming that would connect people and volunteers to that whole process of growing plants, which creates a variety of wonderful interpretive and volunteer programs. So in this option for the North Coyote Valley Hill Hub, we have the native plant nursery next to the staging area. We have a native plant garden where you could see the benefits of the nursery in action right next to it, and that's kind of surrounding the outdoor classroom. Everything else is pretty much as it was in the other options. Okay. Third one, Caddy Valley Hill Hub. So down to Palm Avenue, right next to our existing open space preserve staging area and parking lot. So some common features in this one. We have this idea, which has been bandied about the agency for more than a decade, I think, one time proposed for the North Meadow, of having a welcome and education center. So some type of built facility where we could be kind of the hub of our interpretive programs. We have a few different scales of that you'll see in the coming slides. And you got, I think that's Cliff that we photoshopped in there giving a talk to a school group. Near that welcome center, you have the native plant gardens that I was talking about, because you'll see the native plant nurseries also contemplated here. You have this idea of nature play. If any of you have been to Tunnel Tops Park in San Francisco, where you have large, boulders and logs and natural features that invite kids to climb on and get a little messy and just have fun, in a place where you don't have to stay on the trail. You can just go and have fun, is an idea that we're exploring to be near this education center. And this would also be a starting point and a hub for connecting to the larger regional trail network. So a few layouts for that. Again, light, medium, high. This is the light option. It just has a 500 square foot open air structure that would serve as the Welcome and Education Center. It has the native plant garden. It has a new parking area off of Palm Avenue. I'll say another universal thing for all the options is we want to expand the parking at this location, because with the expanded trail network and already the demand that exists at Caddy Valley Open Space Preserve, we think it's warranted to increase the parking. This diagram shows it off of Palm. There could be other orientations to it, but all three options have expanded parking for the expanded uses that would be located here. Next option. This one has a slightly bigger education center. If you've been to Arrastadero Preserve in Palo Alto, it's kind of like an indoor-outdoor facility where you can open the sliding doors and go out to the outside, or do something inside if it's raining, for educational programs. In this option, the native plant nursery is located here instead. So there's a synergy there between the education center, the native plant nursery, the native plant garden. And then in all three options I should mention, there's connections between all these facilities and the existing trail network and the new trail network that would go to points north. The third option, the high amenity option, adds a couple additional features. This one envisions a more robust education center, something more aligned with the Coyote Creek Visitor Center that County Parks runs just south of here. Places for indoor exhibit, indoor restrooms, just kind of more built out, about 5,000 square feet. It also carves out about 5 acres for an agricultural demonstration field. Agriculture, our ag team has identified as being tough at this location. It's covered in ground squirrels, which actually we like, because ground squirrels create burrowing owl habitat. And so we don't want to create conflict where there shouldn't be. So this option puts the agricultural demo field on the the southeast corner of the property, further away from the natural habitat where the ground squirrels like to hang out, and buffered by the more built up areas so that we can keep them out of the field. The other unique thing that this high amenity option contemplates is, California native grasslands have pretty much disappeared. European grasses predominate, and throughout the project area, we'll implement seed mixes to have a better balance between natives and non-natives. But we think it might be interesting to explore a small area where we show people what a real California native grassland might look like. And it has to be small because it would require lots of management and maintenance. And that's why it's in this high amenity option next to the native plant gardens and visitors or education center. All right, last area, the Palm Avenue Gateway. So this is at the intersection of Palm and Santa Teresa. And here the kind of universal features between all three options I'm about to show you are a farm stand, a place where people could buy produce that's grown on Open Space Authority lands, flexible outdoor gathering areas where people can gather or have educational programs more focused on agriculture, parking for both the farm stand and also for trail access. I didn't point it out in the connections diagrams, but all versions of the multi-use trail have a branch that go out to this location. So you could, park over at the North Caddy Valley Hub or at Caddy Valley Open Space Preserve and walk or bike or ride your horse to this location too. and of course, views of the beautiful agricultural fields that would exist in this location. So the first option, the light option, this concentrates all the built uses, and apologies, the labels are missing here, but this is Palm Avenue, and this is Santa Teresa Boulevard. And then here is Fisher Creek. So the open space preserve is just down this road on the left of the screen. And the multi-use trail you see coming in and connecting to this area. The bus stops are on the corner here. And here we have the built areas focused on the east side of the road. So farm stand at the corner of Santa Teresa and Palm. And then there's an existing farm center that has a barn on it today. We kind of build that out further and have things like a corp yard for secure storage of farm equipment, barns, packing sheds for fruit packing, hoop houses for propagation. And the idea of concentrating all that there is we're thinking on the east side of the road, having smaller parcels where smaller people who want to run smaller farms or people who are just starting farming are more experienced but want to do a smaller parcel of farming, we could concentrate them on the east side and they could share these resources in that farm center instead of having to build their own. On the west side, we're thinking larger plots of farmland, 5 acres or so. And this is just this particular area. I'll note that we still expect to have around 255 acres of cultivated agricultural land in the current plan schemes at Fisher's Bend, at Laguna 60, where Spina Farms is. Those would all continue to be farmed. So option 1. Option 2, farm center still on the east side. This moves the farm stand to the west side of the road. The potential benefit here is a more direct connection to the multi-use trail network, potentially taking advantage of southbound commute traffic so people on their way home can easily turn onto Palm and then into the farm stand and get some produce on their way to Morgan Hill. Because I think people are less likely to buy produce on their way to work in the morning, but that's just me. And the other things that you see on the screen are pretty much the same. And then the last option adds a few notable amenities. So on the east side, there's an idea of doing farm manager housing here. And this would be a big, new thing for the agency to consider is, do we want to have a place where a farmer who is leasing one of these agricultural parcels lives and kind of is there as a caretaker and steward and also a farmer of these lands? So we think the location on the east side and near that farm center would be a good place for housing if the agency were to decide to pursue that. And then on the west side, in addition to the farm stand, we have this idea of an educational barn. So, I should say that all these ideas are kind of mix and match, right? You could pair option, 1 for the North Caddy Valley Hill with option 3 for the Palm property. That's kind of the task before us, and the rest of 2026 is combining things together in a way that makes sense. And I'll say that for this option because this one has an education barn. So maybe instead of a welcome center, education center on Palm 30 on the Caddy Valley Hub next to the preserve, we have a barn next to the farm stand where people can gather and do interpretive programs, educational programs that could also maybe serve the farmers. So that's the idea, is creating a flexible space there. So wrapping up, those are the 4 focus areas. This represents a lot of work, I will say. And from across the team, Jennifer Peth is here, our assistant project manager, has been working very hard alongside me and Aaron to get this project going. A big team of OSA staff, post city staff, and of course our great consultants working on this. So I hope you were able to follow along with all the graphics and all the rich content. There's more to come. And what we're working on right now is finalizing these graphics. This is kind of like the almost done version of them. There's still little things here and there that we're fixing, and we'll fix those before we share them with the public in spring, which is what we're preparing for next, this big round of stakeholder and community outreach, including reaching out to our advisors like our science advisory group and getting their input on this too. And as Aaron mentioned, we have a lot of water modeling that we're still doing, figuring out how to, we know what we want to achieve now in terms of habitat restoration. What's the most efficient way of doing it? And that's what we're trying to figure out through the modeling. Further ahead, as I mentioned at the outside of the presentation, we'll be working on, figuring out how to phase all this. What's the permitting strategy? We can't build all of this at once. And how might we pair things in a way that makes sense from a phasing perspective? And then we'll start working on creating a vision that we want to carry forward into environmental review. And that's kind of be the big task in front of us for the rest of the year. 2027 environmental review, and then coming before you again for hopefully plan adoption sometime in 2027. So in addition to that, just a little teaser for outreach. We are calling spring 2026 on Team CV Camp Caddy Valley Fest. And the idea here is rather than saying, hey, come to our workshop at the gym, we're going to have a presentation on these plan concepts. We are planning a whole series of events that are meant to like get people excited about what Coyote Valley has to offer. So we're thinking of doing open houses where our interpretive team does educational programs and our workshop presentation posters are in the background. People can learn about them. Guided hikes where people can go and experience the landscape. And maybe we have a survey that we have them fill out after about what they think about the experience. Pop-up events all throughout the area where we have content related to Coyote Valley so we can engage people where they are and invite them to come out to Coyote Valley and learn about our plans for the landscape. Really want to reach as many people as we can and get their input, make sure we're going in the right direction with these concept alternatives before we work on creating the final plan. And with that, I conclude our presentation and we are available to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. This is inspiring and exciting. I'd like to give the board members an opportunity to make their comments, but thank you so much.
Now I know why you don't have any spare time. I got two questions, a question on each of two areas from the beginning. One is the grading and one is the clear overpass of the roads. With the overpass, with the crosses, are they underpasses, overpasses? What kind of passes are they?
Do you want to answer that?
Yeah, great question. So on Monterey Road, Post is looking at two undercrossings. One's an existing undercrossing where Fisher Creek actually meets Coyote Creek, goes under a Monterey and Union Pacific, sort of right there. So it's kind of a double crossing. And then further north on Tulare Hill, probably it's an area you wouldn't likely go, but there's another opportunity to create a new undercrossing. They're also looking at their preliminary report, sort of looking at the feasibility of these things, also identifies a potential overcrossing that would land in sort of the middle of Tulare Meadows, roughly speaking. That one is a little bit challenged on the other side of the road, not having enough land ownership in particular to do that. So, for now, they're moving ahead with the two undercrossings. For our project area, I'll say this is something that we're evaluating closely. Most of us sort of think that Santa Teresa doesn't have quite enough traffic and wildlife vehicle collisions to warrant an overcrossing because they're expensive, $50 million plus kind of expensive. But one of the things I didn't mention in my presentation, just for the sake of time, is that one of the benefits of routing water into North Laguna Seca in the moderate and high scenarios is that there's an existing culvert that goes underneath Santa Teresa that's, 20 feet high and about 30 feet wide. And when it's dry, it's great for wildlife passage. So our idea is actually to route a lot of water to a northern culvert that drains Laguna Seca so that this existing culvert can actually act as kind of a free wildlife undercrossing. So we're still exploring those. We're actually just about to receive a memo from our sort of road ecology team to kind of advise us on these different strategies, but still a bit in progress.
If they were under crossings that close to the creek, it would be subject to flooding. More likely. What about over 101?
Yeah, I serve as a technical advisor of sorts to the work that Post and Caltrans are doing on Highway 101. And the good news is that there are many existing culverts underneath 101 that can serve as wildlife crossings. The bad news is that some of them are plugged with sediment. And they're very, very long. They're usually 300 feet long. So they need this sort of special piece of equipment to sort of bore in there. And it's a whole to do. The other nice thing about 101 is that there are existing overcrossings. So like bridges effectively, like at Coyote Creek Golf Course, for instance. Generally people seem to be of the mind that a combination of clearing some of those culverts, maybe installing a new one, directing wildlife to the existing undercrossings. And then the other thing you might appreciate as someone who drives in the area is that the fencing around 101 is in really poor condition. So a lot of the wildlife vehicle collisions that we have now are probably the result of poor fencing. So Caltrans, you might have also seen this in the press, I think, is also doing improvements to the fencing kind of near Anderson Dam and that part of 101 to keep wildlife off the road.
Then regarding the three options you have for great, you guys have a favorite?
Well, it's not my money, so the most expensive one. You know, I mean, like I would emphasize that they all really do a lot from a terrestrial ecology standpoint. Just having more oaks and more natural vegetation will allow wild. So I think we'll be successful on that front. I think really what we're doing on the flooding and sort of watershed side of things is like, how do we get the most bang for the buck? You know, I mean, you know, like you see this in both Laguna Seca and in Fisher Creek. In Fisher Creek, it's going to be cheaper to improve it in place, and you're going to get a lot of that uplift and benefit. Is it as good as that bigger version where you swing it out west? Same thing in Laguna Seca is taking on removing of the dam and then trying to find places to flood and create storage. Is that worth it from both a habitat standpoint and a dollar standpoint? So, I mean, I think to Nick's point, it's really a mix and match. It's not A, B, or C, right? We'll combine different elements of it and, get to that kind of value engineering standpoint. But I think they all work. I am curious at some point later in the process, we will look at costs and, those have to be considered at some level. So how to balance all of that. I mean, I think the volume of earthworks is that primary driver of cost, certainly on the habitat side of things.
Thanks so much.
Through the chair, if I could add another benefit of kind of these three options is also discovering phasing. So the lighter option might be what we start with, and then you kind of add things on top of it. So it really is about mixing and matching and figuring out, a variety of different ways to crack this nut.
It's excellent presentation, just really, really good, very thorough, very understandable. My only comment is that on your visions for the hubs, those sound like they can morph into phases rather than choosing one over the other. They would just be phasing
Potentially, exactly. Yes.
toward full
Mhm.
build out.
Yeah. I mean, there are some choices to be made because you wouldn't there's like, the two options to have a native plant nursery in two different locations. We'd only have one native plant nursery. So there is work to be done to figure out the best mix and match, but some of them do illustrate a way of slowly building a progressive vision.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Director Chapman? It's hard for me to contain my excitement. I remember this was planned to be a big city and sat on that, for 6 years and looked at it and it's like, I am so excited and I am so appreciative of the hard work that you guys are doing to bring this forward. I mean, I didn't think I'd see this in my lifetime. And I'm thrilled. I love the outdoor classroom idea because again, it's, bringing people that be able to touch it, to see it and what this valley used to be. Maybe you get a historical perspective, use some of the history in there. The re-oaking, I think that's important. I mean, there's so many elements in here that are just, it's thrilling. It's exciting. And Nick, I would love to have again one-on-one and kind of go through this more in detail.
Happy to do that.
Because I think, when this goes out to the public, you're gonna need us as ambassadors to
Yeah.
kind of to help guide people and, to get them as excited as we are, because we've seen how hard you guys have been working on this over the years, right? I like the phasing approach, because I think you probably got some things that you could do. And right now, treat it like there's money has no object, right? I mean, you might as well dream and you might as well put it out there.
Write that down.
So, and don't let it hold you back yet. I mean, that's gonna come.
Yep.
But I mean, at this point, this is the part where we dream, we get excited and we show the public. Because people have been waiting a long time since we've done the acquisition to kind of see what you're gonna throw out there. So I think that, the first bang is gonna be, what captures everybody's attention.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm just gonna echo everything that my fellow directors have shared. It's a wonderful presentation. I'm so excited to be on this board, to see this come to fruition, and I'm just in awe of all the hard work that this organization is doing to preserve and protect. So appreciate you sharing today. I am curious, I think it was phase 2 in that journey that
Yeah.
you've done. Where you had your initial community engagement, there's like pictures of
Yes.
community members. What was like one of the key takeaways from those conversations that you've been able to incorporate in some of the phases?
I think people were just really excited about the opportunity to reach open space in such an accessible way. Like they didn't have to go out into the hills. Because when we talked to a lot of communities, there was like, especially when we did like targeted outreach to the Vietnamese speaking population or the Spanish speaking population, like a lot of people who aren't our normal preserve users, they got excited about when they learned about Coyote Valley and how they could come out without getting too far off the major roads, without driving up winding roads and like experiencing nature there. And so that was exciting for us to hear because there was a lot of interest on their part in creating experiences that were very accessible. So you see that reflected, I think, in the trail network, thinking about how to create loops on the valley floor where people could just come and take a quick hike, really emphasizing the North Coyote Valley Hill Hub. We've done a lot of guided hikes out there. I've talked about it at the workshops that you see on the screen too. And people go up there and they just like, wow, like I get it, you know? So figuring out, like emphasizing that as one of our key nodes. I'm trying to remember, I don't know, Jennifer, not to put you on the spot, but other things that came out of Jennifer's kind of leading our engagement branch right now. So it's more in her head while I figure out how to do all these diagrams. But any other takeaways you'd want to share?
Just, I think there's so much interest for the wildlife crossing or the wildlife connectivity piece of it, and just that I think so much support for that as one of the primary goals of the project.
I also remember hearing a lot about interest in agriculture and letting people like get their hands dirty or connect to the agricultural area. So ways we could do that with things like the educational barn that's in one of the ideas. I think there's a lot of interest in we heard from the public.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, sorry for my voice. Is that better? Yeah. I'm a visual person and the renderings are pretty inspiring. And I think as the public, sometimes all the planning that's done doesn't get the attention and recognition and appreciation because nobody sees it. Well, when you have something on paper that you can show people what the plan is or what the plan could be, they even though nothing's physically on the ground, they start to feel like they own a part of it. So I think this is going to be really amazing, and I think we'll get a lot of folks who may not have thought about open space as part of their life to be curious and well, curious. So thank you.
Thank you.
Director Field?
Yeah, great presentation and lot of information we just digested. The question is that because I want to might be just recap that it's a big project, almost 4 years project. So do you know the cost and then where we can get that money? So any grants or anything so we can get that to complete the project?
At the risk of sharing numbers that I'll regret later, we are thinking about this. And so I guess to answer your first question of where we will get the money, many different sources, there's going to have to be a lot of outside funding that comes in to help us achieve this vision. I will say on the very bright side that Proposition 4 had $25 million devoted just to Coyote Valley. And we're hoping to tap into that to, at the very least, help us start to take these ideas from concept, which is where they are and where they will be when we finish the plan, into detailed design and construction so they're shovel ready. So we've already started to identify sources of money to take this to reality. We'll keep searching for money. We have ongoing conversations. You all know Megan Dreger, my colleague, we're always talking about how we can fund this vision and make it a reality. So I'd say we're ahead of the game. We still have a lot of work to do. In terms of cost, We have really ballpark figures for some of the ideas that we think might be rising to the top. It's around like, $5 million to build out Spreckles Hill, and sorry, I just called it the old name. North Caddy Valley Hill, it's a maybe $5 million to build out a really wonderful native plant nursery that would have the ability to host public programs. So, I know it's hard to give you a precise figure, but we still have some rough ones. I'd be happy to meet with you one-on-one to share more detailed numbers of what we're kind of ballparking around for some of these
There's
features.
no estimate at this point.
Not for everything altogether.
When we start the project, we didn't just plan to look at how much money we have to be spent, no matter is the grant or anything. We have some kind of when we start the project, we know that much money we have to be spent, and how much money the open space authority is just putting in, and then how much money we can get in the grants.
Yeah, we're working on that, but for the most part, we're taking Director Chapman's philosophy right now. Dream big, and then we have a lot of work to do to figure out how to narrow it down to what we think is achievable from a funding perspective. So definitely hear your comments, and we'll be working hard to get a clearer financial picture moving forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nick, Aaron, thank you again, and Jennifer for the inspiring presentation. And I know that we all look forward to seeing more information once the community meeting has been held. So this is an informational item, but I do know that we have a public speaker. Dave Pochel, you've been patient.
Oh, wow, this is fantastic. Some of us that have been watching Coyote Valley for decades, we're gobsmacked, right? And it really shows how thoughtful you were about this. So, and I'm very pleased with what I see. I'll probably be digesting this for some time, and you'll get, a booklet of my comments at some point. But I'm absolutely thrilled and very impressed with the work that you've done. I did have a couple of questions, if you're willing to, accept them. I'm just inspired to go out and work for that Citizens Initiative to bring in some money, right? And to do the Coyote Fest and maybe, some docent work out there. But I did have some questions about Fisher Creek water flow. It looks like it's going to continue to flow into Coyote Creek. And I don't know if the flow is going to be altered, or there's a couple thoughts that I've had is one, will there be enough water and obstacles removed so that if anadromous fish can come up Coyote Creek, if they can get in there, and if there'll be a connection to some wetland areas, because like the young salmon and steelhead could benefit by calm waters where they can feed like they do in the Sacramento Valley. They let them go out into the rice paddies, and then if they can get, back and forth. And then again, if you envision at some point enough water for the beavers to come in. I know you heard from me about this in the past, and I'm excited just about the analog, the human design analog, but would it be possible that the beavers could help with this project, Anyway, you'll be hearing from me more in the coming months. Thank you.
Thank you, David. We look forward to it. So this was an informational item and no board action is needed, but once again, thank you very much.
Through the chair, just if any members of the public joining us via Zoom would like to comment on this item, you can raise your hand. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Could I make one quick comment?
Sure.
Just a statement. Okay. So we've done a great job protecting the hillsides and the oaks, a lot of trails up in the hills. But to me, the valley floor oak woodlands just feels different. And I do a lot of volunteer restoration work in the Guadalupe Oak Grove Park. It's a San Jose City park, completely surrounded by suburbs. but it's big enough, about like 50 acres. It never developed, not turned to orchards or housing or anything, and you can get a feel for what a valley floor oak woodland is like. I mean, it's really like the last remnant of Santa Clara Valley's valley floor oak woodland. And if anybody would be interested in a docent-led hike, I would love to go out there anytime and take you on a beautiful hike.
Thank you very much. The next item on our agenda is the committee meeting summaries, and there were no committee meetings in December. So we'll move on to staff reports. Mark and Lee, will you be handling the general managers?
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. Mark Landgraf, Assistant General Manager. I'll start things off. I know there are a number of folks who want to make comments. Just wanted to update your board on the grant of $30,000 to the Regents of the University of California by the Open Space Authority for an agricultural outreach and awareness campaign. That was completed recently. This award is part of the provision under our Measure T expenditure plan that includes a provision to provide grants to agricultural organizations. And the scope of work includes Highway 101 signage, social media videos, and other educational materials showcasing the value local agriculture brings to our local economy. So very relevant to the discussion we just had about the potential for highlighting agriculture in Cuylie Valley. And then also an update on the Urban Grant Awards special board meeting on March 12th. So that's Thursday, March 12th. It'll be located offsite at the School of Arts and Culture at the Mexican Heritage Plaza in downtown San Jose. Loosely downtown. Okay. So please note the meeting will start early at 5 p.m. to accommodate the expected public speakers and longer meeting time. Our clerk of the board, Caroline, will be following up with more details about this meeting. In other news, a request for bids for construction of the Hearts Delight Accessibility Trail at Cuylie Valley Open Space Preserve will be released tomorrow. We are staff is planning to bring an award recommendation to your board in April. And then just as we touched on Heritage Oaks Cemetery proposal at the last board meeting, our work continues, especially work of our legal counsel, to review the supplemental environmental impact report so that we can provide comments, which are due on February 18th. So those are my comments.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, directors. Lee Rauscher, Assistant General Manager. And first, I want to welcome Director Ming Hyde. It's nice to have you aboard. And then a quick update from the field, since Derek wasn't able to be here tonight. The field is gearing up for wildflower season. Our educational program administrator, Mel Sarmento, I often leave the R out, so Sarmento has been doing a fabulous job getting the materials organized and docents trained. There are ongoing docent trainings right now. If you know anyone who's eager to be a wildflower docent, please send them our way. As is our volunteer program administrator, Gavin Comstock, gearing up as well. That is my update. If I could invite Charlotte.
Thank you. Good evening, directors, and welcome, Director Ming Hyde. Today was the official unveiling of the Morgan Hill Destination Guide, and the Open Space Authority was featured very prominently on the inside cover, as well as on the outdoor section, which starts on page 38. So we do have copies available for folks to look at, and it's also available for free online on the Visit Morgan Hill website. So we're really excited about this. We've had lots of wonderful press and mentions recently, and there's a lot more to come. I'm going to try to get through this quickly. Tomorrow or Monday at the latest, we'll be sending out a press release about all of the exciting changes to our board. In early February, we'll be doing some press around our new multilingual activity books. These are going to be available in English, Spanish, Vietnamese, and Chinese. And we'll be letting people know where they can find them, as well as how to download them for free on our website. We are also excited to be the lead sponsor of the Silicon Valley Youth Climate Action Nature Video Contest. It's for middle schoolers and high schoolers, and it'll open in February, so more to come about that. And we also have some fun things planned with our ethnic media consultants for Lunar New Year in February, Year of the Fire Horse, my favorite animal, so I'm especially excited about that. And then many, many more exciting press moments coming up for the spring. But one thing I can put on your calendars now is a press conference being held at Coyote Valley Open Space Preserve Friday, May the 1st. It's the groundbreaking of our public access accessibility project. Thank you.
Thank you. And then who's next? Aaron?
Yeah, great. I'll go next. Happy to share that we had a really nice tour with Valley Water maybe a week or two ago. We toured two of their board members out there, as well as some of their senior staff, really engaging them. As you can tell, there's a lot to talk about on the watershed side of the project. It's really nice to get out in the field and sort of talk collaboration and sort of mutual interest in our work, especially because, you know, this is a very large scale watershed restoration project. Is one component of it, and so just engaging them that really good conversations with them. I'll mention that you've been able to see what Nick and I have been up to, but my own team, they've been working away as well. Ana Regalado, our agricultural specialist, is just shortly going to send out a survey to farmers. The board may recall her coming and engaging you on what we were calling our agricultural strategic plan. We've rebranded that slightly to, I think, our farm vision. The reason being to not get it confused with some of the rural zoning update stuff that is of concern to certain community members. So at any rate, really reaching into the farming community to understand what their needs are, to, you know, sort of better understand if we were going to grow our agricultural program or change it in some way, how's it meeting those farmers' needs? You'll get a more full report on this, but I'll say this last year we had our first wild pig trapping effort in calendar year 2025, and we just got the report in that there were 113 pigs trapped and dispatched in that year, which is obviously a lot. And you know, as the board may recall, this is a 3-year contract. So I think a successful first year. This is a big issue, especially for locals as well as for land managers. Farmers also deal with this. So success there. We'll brief the board more at a later date.
Nick? No.
Just briefly, I mentioned Coyote Valley Fest at the end of the presentation. We are very close to having dates set for a variety of events going from end of March till May. Look forward to sharing those with the board very soon. Things at the Discovery Museum, San Pedro Square, lots of ideas that Jennifer and Jackie and our team are working to confirm as we speak. And there'll be a cool music festival inspired poster that will have them all in one place that we can give to you all to share with folks, you know. So more to come. Thank you.
I'll round it out if I can. Elizabeth Loretto, Administrative Operations Manager. Very exciting for us is that our Expenditure Plan Oversight Committee will be meeting this coming Tuesday to kick off their cycle for the review of fiscal year 24-25. Part of what makes it extra exciting is that we have a full roster of 7 committee members for the first time in years. And then on the staffing side, this winter we completed a handful of recruitments, and we're excited to be welcoming 10 new staff members in February. This includes 4 seasonal outreach aides, 1 to work with all of the great exciting CV camp stuff you've just been hearing about, one, to work with our volunteer outreach team, and two, to support the educational team in our wildflower season. So lots of good stuff coming. Those folks will be with us kind of through early summer. And then we have our newest round of kind of annual seasonal open space aids. There are 4 of them will be with us into the fall. And 2 new regular non-seasonal open space aid backfilling some vacancies from 2025. And then very excitingly, also 2 active recruitments right now, still accepting applications through these next coming weeks. A temporary executive assistant to support Andrea, Mark, and Lee, and a volunteer program coordinator. So both some really critical roles for us to keep engaging with our partners and the public and the community. So would appreciate your sharing if you haven't already.
Thank you very much. Director Gill, I would love to start at your end. I'm so sorry I've been doing this. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh my gosh.
I would have stopped you if I had something to say.
Nothing to report? Perfect. Director Gill?
Nothing report,
Okay.
like work constable.
Thank you. Never mind.
Oh,
Director Chapman.
Just a couple things, and General Manager McKenzie and I did a presentation to the District 6 Leadership Group that went off very well. And then, also with Mark, we continued a meeting with Councilmember Anthony Torrijos to talk about all things Coyote Valley. And it kind of morphed into a little briefing with District 9 and the mayor's office. So kind of nice to be back on the 18th floor for a short amount of time. Nice. You got rid of my cubicle, but anyway. That's my report.
Thank you. No report. Director Kenneth?
In view of the.
Is your-
In view of the gentleman that made a comment about the battery storage in Coyote Valley, Director Chapman and I, General Manager, met with, for the second, and I have a feeling it's only the second time we're meeting with the company that is lobbying us, if you will, to support it. Little do they know. And one interesting comment is, as we were leaving, the next meeting that they asked us to make room for was a friend of mine who happens to be president of the Morgan Hill Unified School Board. So they're working it. Other than that, nice to see y'all.
Thank you. My report is that with Mark, we have visited Supervisor Betty Young and had a great meeting with her. She will be asking for more of the activity books. They were a great fit with her. And then a couple of days ago, we met with Nicole from Congressman Ro Khanna's office. And very engaged, very supportive of the work we do out here. So it's nice just to go tell folks what we're doing, and how we're using the funding that we get, and we're able to leverage it, and the amazing work that the organization does, and everybody loves open space. So yeah, that's my report. Any members of the public? Wait. Do I need to do that? There is one thing though, we do have an adjournment before we go. As many of you probably know, Doug McConnell passed away recently, and he was a legend and an institution with his show Bay Area Backroads. I remember watching that show forever. And I have friends who watched it all the time also, and they would let me know when they saw the open space portions of his show. And so I would like to adjourn this meeting in honor of Doug McConnell's memory. And I have some words, and then of course everybody else would have an opinion. As we close tonight's meeting, we want to take a moment to remember someone whose passion for conservation has left a lasting mark on this region and on the Open Space Authority. Doug McConnell dedicated his career to telling the stories of the landscapes, wildlife, and communities that make the Bay Area so extraordinary, primarily through his well-known television shows, Bay Area Backroads and Open Road. Doug was a steadfast supporter of the authority's mission, and through his work, he helped countless people understand the importance of open space, agriculture, and the deep connection between people and the natural world. He reminded us that conservation isn't just about land. It's also about hope, stewardship, and the legacy we live for future generations. We are grateful for his partnership, his storytelling, and his unwavering belief in the power of nature to bring people together. So with that, we close this meeting in honor of Doug McConnell and his contributions to the Santa Clara Valley Open Space Authority. If there are any board members who would like to add, welcome your comments.
Watched this program for years and hope it continues.
I had a chance to meet him during COVID, when Councilmember Jimenez was out there and we were out in the Laguna Seca area. I have a picture and everybody's like 12 feet apart. That was when we didn't know that, we're fine in the open air, but we all wore masks and very nice man.
Margie?
Well, you just reminded me that I met Doug probably 40 years ago in Mercer Caverns by Murphy's.
Yeah.
And they had little kids and we had little kids and we were at the bottom of Mercer Caverns and I recognized him. He was famous back even then. So I've been thinking about him lately.
Nick.
Yeah, through the chair, if I could share a memory. So I grew up watching his show. My whole life I was on TV in some form. And I think his show inspired my family to explore places like Coyote Valley. It's probably part of the reason I drove from Mountain View, where I grew up, into Coyote Valley. They bought me his book, the Bay Area Backroads book. And then I had the opportunity to get interviewed by him as a part of this job a few years ago. He met me out in Coyote Valley, talk about my work. I brought the book, he signed it. And he was just the sweetest, most genuine person. And he made me feel so at ease before we did the on-camera interview. And we just talked about my work. And he was just so encouraging and so supportive. It's like, you don't want to meet your heroes sometimes. And I did, and it was wonderful. So I'm just so grateful for everything you did to kind of spread the word about the open space and exploring your own backyard. I'm very glad that this job gave me the chance to meet him. Yeah. And I hope I appreciate this opportunity to share that memory and to honor him.
Thank you.
Yeah, through the chair, I'll say, maybe 10 years ago, Doug McConnell interviewed me about some watershed restoration work, and yeah, like a very similar story to Nick. And yeah, meeting Doug was just great. And it was really like the first moment in my career where I was like, I've made it. McConnell's in. And yeah, he was just such a sweetheart.
And yeah, if I may make a comment as well. Yeah, we've worked with Doug so much over the years, creating so many episodes, not just about Coyote Valley, but much of the work that we do in different areas. And he just had, yeah, like Nick was saying, a way about him that was put people at ease and allowed you to feel comfortable. So he could draw information out of you that others wouldn't have access to, right? So he was so effective at his job that way. And then just was such a great champion for open space throughout the Bay Area. I think a lot of the success of open space organizations around the Bay are thanks to his education to the public that helped build support. I think that's really important.
Oh, through the chair, we actually have a little video that we would like to share.
We've never had that happen.
Andrew, here we are on the east side. That's Coyote Valley out there, right?
That's exactly right.
Coyote Valley out below us. And on the far side over there, we've got the Santa Cruz Mountains, and you have a Coyote Valley Preserve over there, yes? From those hills?
We do. Just a few years ago, we purchased and opened up for the public about 360 acres of valley floor habitat. It's called the Coyote Valley Open Space Preserve.
And it's a beautiful spot, and we're gonna end up over there today. We're gonna go from where we are right here, the Coyote Ridge Open Space Preserve, that is, goes way up in the hills up here with fantastic views of the Diablo Range and wildflowers in the spring and checker spot butterflies and all kinds of great things, Thule elk, all kinds of good things.
Who could ask for more?
I would not ask for more, but you're asking for a big dream, a big hope here.
That's right.
And then tell me what that is connecting these many hundreds of thousands of acres of protected land over here on the Diablo Range with many hundreds of thousands of protected acres over on the Santa Cruz Mountains. What's the hope and dream? What's the big vision?
Thank you for sharing, Charlotte. And I think with that, we're adjourned. Thank you all very much.